Welcome to another edition of AircraftPost Rousseau Report. I'm your host, Dennis Rousseau. We recently presented Boeing's business jet, a derivative of the 737-700 fuselage mated to the Dash 800 wing. Today, we're going to talk about the Legacy. That's the Subaru. That's Scotch. There we go. The Legacy 600 and 650. Both derivatives of the ERJ, which stands for Embraer Regional Jet, that made its maiden flight in 1995 and delivered over 1,200 aircraft for commuter service over its production run. The Legacy name actually is derived from the company's airline, Legacy. Similar to the BBJ, the Airbus corporate jet, and Bombardier's 850. The Legacy has airliner DNA and reliability. 3 iterations were built. The ERJ 145 was conceived in the early 90s to serve the 50-passenger regional jet market. The aircraft had a max cruise speed of Mach 0.78, a service ceiling of 370, and a range of 14 to 1,600 nautical miles, powered by Rolls-Royce Allison AE 3007A turbofan engines, the same that are used on the Citation 10 and 10 Plus business jet. First deliveries began in 1996. Embraer also identified a market need for an aircraft with less than 40 seats to serve low-density routes, and as such developed the ERJ 135 with a 37-passenger seating capacity. It uses the same fuselage, cockpit, empennage, and wing as the 145, although it's 11 feet 6 inches shorter. And because there's a 96% commonality between the aircraft, their costs are near identical, and they both use the same maintenance and training procedures. The ERJ 135 received type certification in May 1999 and began deliveries in July. In that same year, they introduced a 44-seat variant called the ERJ 140. The final variant was the ERJ 145 XR that had increased fuel capacity and winglets, which allowed a range of just under 2,000 nautical miles. Now keep in mind, we're starting with an airliner fuselage that's designed for max seating and turning it into a business jet. One of the major external differentiators is that all Legacies have winglets, blended on the 600 and detachable on the 650, and obviously custom paint schemes. The main competitor to the ERJ is Bombardier's Canadair Regional Jet, also known as the CRJ. This aircraft began production around the same time as Embraer, and as opposed to starting with a regional jet and converting it to a business jet, Bombardier actually did the opposite. They took the Challenger 600 series fuselage and stretched it. Not once, but 3 times, until the aircraft looked like a flying pencil. As I've said in the past, Bombardier has been regurgitating the same fuselage over 3,600 times since 1980, right up to and including the Global 7500. Now think about this. They took a cramped airline interior, installed executive seating, applied custom paint, and voila! The Bombardier 850 was born to compete with the Legacy 600. As I mentioned in the BBJ video, no matter what you do to the aircraft, it still has airliner performance. The fuselage cross-section is similar in both aircraft, and they both offer 6 feet of headroom, although the Legacy achieves this through a dropped aisle, which I'll show you in a minute. The 850 has a flat floor, but the real difference is that the 850 has a 98-inch width versus the Legacy's 81-inch. Now, similar to Bombardier, where the Canadian government owns part of the company, the Brazilian government has a stake in Embraer. In fact, the company was state-run from the beginning until it was sold to private investors in 1994. Although the government maintains golden shares, it allows it veto power. All the Embraer aircraft mentioned above are powered by Rolls-Royce Allison AE 3007 turbofan engines, which as mentioned are also used on the Cessna Citation 10 series. They're eligible for Rolls-Royce corporate care, on average $420 per engine per hour, with a 300-hour minimum per year. The Legacy 600 uses the Dash A1 engine, and the Legacy 650 uses the Dash A2. Both are full FADEC, and the latter has a 1,000 pounds thrust increase per side. Both models use the Honeywell Primus avionics platform. The 600 has the Primus 1000 that's also used in the Lear 40 and 45 series, and employs 5 CRT displays. The Legacy 650 has the Primus Elite that incorporates 5 LCDs. And although this photo depicts the Primus Elite, The screens are the same size and difficult to tell apart. It should be noted that the DU-870 CRTs on the Primus 1000 can be retrofitted with the DU-875 LCDs, but like everything in aviation, you will pay. Regardless of CRT LCDs, the aircraft comes well equipped. Similar to most business jets, as new technology is announced, OEMs try to incorporate as much as they can in current production aircraft. With the Legacy 650E Echo announced in 2016, it's equipped for WAAS and LPV approaches, and also features smart landing and smart runway, and synthetic vision and auto throttles are standard. We're getting slightly ahead of ourselves, but also note the ram's horn yokes that British Aerospace, better known as Hawker, has used since the 1960s. As we enter the aircraft, we face the 7.5-foot long galley and an optional forward lab on the left-hand side. The first zone is standard equipped with 4 singles and a club arrangement, with Zone 2 incorporating a 4-place conference group. Zone 3 has 2 single seats opposite a 3-place divan, very similar to most 3-zone purpose-built business jets. As mentioned, the aircraft does offer 6 feet of cabin height, which is achieved by employing a drop dial. One of the more remarkable features of the Legacy 600-650 is the pressurized, climate-controlled baggage area comprising, get this, 240 cubic feet of luggage space. This compares to the industry leader G550 that has 226 cubic feet. Clearly, it's huge. Another seating arrangement is comprised of a 4-place club in Zone 1 and 2, followed by the 3-place divan opposite 2 singles, while still accommodating 13 passengers. The galley is well equipped to serve 12 passengers over its 8-hour endurance. This photo depicts the double club arrangement in both the forward and mid-cabin, and now we can better see the drop dial. But even so, once inside the cabin, it's difficult to tell that you're in a modified airliner. Embraer does a very nice job of outfitting the Legacy 600 and 650. As we step into the aft cabin, the quality of craftsmanship continues. The divan berths into a full-size bed, and the 2 single seats swivel and can also recline to make into a sleeping area. The early aircraft offered Collins' Airshow 410 cabin management system, whereas the later Legacy 650 series offered the Honeywell Ovation Select cabin management system that could incorporate full HD surround sound, 24-inch LCD monitors, 3D moving map, as well as optional Swift broadband high-speed data and cabin Wi-Fi. The standard aft lab is quite spacious and externally serviced, but let's keep in mind, you have the capability to carry 13 passengers and 2 crew. But a single lav? For $20 million plus, and trying to compete with business jets in the 3-zone class, add a forward lav. Your crew and passengers will thank you. Now, although the ERJs had a range profile of 1,400 to 2,000 miles, the Legacy 600 has a conservative range of around 3,000 nautical miles with full fuel and 12 passengers. Yes, you will read the brochures boasting of a 3,500 nautical mile range, but you pull the power back and limit the passengers to 4. The same applies to the 650. It has beefed up gear, updated engines, a ventral fuel tank, and an advertised full fuel payload of 8 passengers. But keep in mind, we still have airliner build and performance. 0.7 Mach cruise and a certified ceiling of 410, and depending on conditions, you may be stuck in the mid-30s for cruise altitude. Another thing that Embraer added to the 650 was incorporating a glass windshield versus the polycarbonate found on the airliner version. And speaking of airliners, fuel burn, and fuel burn. They look for low operating economics, and the Legacy delivers with an average fuel burn of 325 gallons an hour. Embraer delivered the last 650E, as seen here, in June 20 to a charter operator in Germany, bringing an end to the Legacy 600-650 with 283 aircraft over its 20-year production run. The aircraft had a price point new from 20 to 26 million, and similar to all converted airliners, they lose value real quick. There are currently 4 600s for sale and 3 650s. There's a 2014 650 on the market with 2,500 hours total time, asking high 13s, and it'll probably bring in the mid-12s to low 13. So it's basically hit 50% of its original cost new in 6 years. On the 600s, there's 5 on the market with a 2008 year model, 3,500 total time, asking 6.5 million. Not a very healthy residual for either model, but so goes the converted airliner market. Thank you for joining us. I'm Dennis Rousseau with AircraftPost Rousseau Report. Now, let's get on our legacy and get out of here. Thanks for viewing.